iHeartRadio Talk Network. Now more with Elias Makos.
Thanks for tuning in to this special Canada Day edition of the Elias Makos Show. Now, do not adjust your sets, particularly if you're outside of Montreal. The Elias Makos Show, we do this every day in the great city of Montreal, but because we were going to be on air regardless, you know, Quebecers were less productive than the rest of the country, so sometimes we work on holidays just to make up for it. So we were going to be on air, and we threw out the rest of the network, the iHeartRadio network here. Hey, do you want to take our show? And we're so blessed that so much of the country said, yeah, gimme, gimme, gimme. So from Victoria to Ottawa, Toronto, Windsor, and other cities that they haven't even told me about. And if I haven't mentioned your city, it's on the leadership of your city, not on me. But thank you for listening to this Canada Day edition of the Elias Makos Show. We are discussing Canada this morning to start us off in this second hour of the show. And I'm asking you if you're proud to be Canadian on this Canada Day and how you feel about Canada's future. Multiple ways you can join the conversation. The Montreal number, and if you've got long distance on your phone, use it. 514-790-0800. 790-0800 in the 514. You'll get to our main lines here. If you're in Toronto, you can give a call to your News Talk 1010 station, 416-872-1010, and we will take those calls. But if you pine for a toll-free number like back in the day, the toll-free is open, 1-800-491-2523. Let's kick things off here with Nathan in North York. Nathan, let's make the connections over the internet here. Nathan, are you there?
I am here. Good morning. How are you?
I'm great. Talk to me, Nathan. Are you proud to be Canadian?
All right. So I'm actually a PR currently, and I think it's really, really important. As somewhat of an outsider, you come to Canada. And, housing prices are a challenge, grocery prices are going up, anti-Semitism is on the rise, et cetera, et cetera. But if you take a step back and you look at the country you live in, the opportunities you have, the stability, the safety, et cetera, I think it's really, really incredible, and we shouldn't lose focus on that, macro view.
Nathan, PR, permanent resident, what was your previous home? Where was your previous home?
United States of America.
So why did you go from the U.S. to Canada?
That's a great question that I get a lot, and the answer is my wife is Canadian, so that'll do it. But like I said, there's always issues wherever you live, and some of those issues are larger in some countries. And I think Canada as a whole is really an incredible place, and in the scheme of the world, it's one of the most incredible places that someone could live.
Nathan, finish your thought.
Yeah, even though there's a lot of challenges that get a lot of headlines and people zeroing on that, but it's in the scheme of the world, it's really incredible.
Nathan, thank you for giving us that tremendous perspective. Thank you for joining the club north of the border, and I appreciate the call. One thing I do want to point out, that if I have to say worrisome things, is the back and forth between Canada and the U.S. Right now, we are seeing still a tremendous number of young Canadians deciding to begin or continue their careers south of the border in the U.S. because of better opportunity. Those are the warning bells that I see, but I still see all of the tremendous things that make the country great. Let's get back to our lines here, the 514-790-0800 lines. Mickey is in Saint-Joseph de Sorel here in beautiful Quebec. Hi, Mickey.
Hey. I live where it used to be Quebec Iron there, and I live in a small town. As far as everybody's concerned, I'm sorry to say, I'm proud to be Canadian, but I'm the only Canadian in the city.
So you find you're a Canadian among separatists where you are?
When I apply for something, because I'm from a Canadian descent, I put Canadien, and there's not a day goes by I get a very derogatory remark. They took down the flags in front of schools. The city hall is open today.
No.
Yeah. They're closed the 3rd.
You know what, Mickey, I find very funny here in Quebec how, like, on the Fête Nationale, which is the Quebec national holiday, which is a week ago, all the grocery stores are closed. Canada Day, all the grocery stores are open. I just, it's just like, I guess they had to pick one.
What people don't know is c'est la fête Saint-Jean-Baptiste. It's for all the Catholic countries. People don't know that. They think that it's only in Quebec we have Saint-Jean-Baptiste, And
Yeah.
people, I just walk down the street and they say these really derogatory things. And they call it,
Mickey, we won't translate all the swear words for our audience here, but Mickey, thanks for the call and a happy Canada Day, however you celebrate it. I go to Dave. We find him in Verdun, Quebec, part of Montreal here. Hey, Dave.
Montreal borough, that's correct.
That's
and I'd like to say hi to my fellow Canadians all across the country. And can I mention how I will be celebrating Canada Day?
Absolutely.
Okay, well, and there's got to be somebody else listening here that goes to a little place called the Wheel Club in NDG. Tonight is open mic night, so it means that you can sing any song you want tonight. I'm going to be doing a Stompin' Tom Connor one, the capital song where he goes through all the capitals.
Can I tell you something, Dave, that is just incredible? Coincidence or not, yesterday I had started playing music on my smart speaker. I will not mention the name of the smart speaker. I don't want to set off people's devices, but it started to do a random rotation of songs, and it threw at me that Stomping Tom Connor song. What a coincidence.
So the thing is, again, if you're in Montreal, just look up the address of the Wheel Club. Doors open at 7, and there is no entrance fee. So basically, it's open mic night, and this is a great way to enjoy Canada Day.
Dave, do you want me to ask you to sing? Do you want me to ask you to sing on air? You want to do open mic night right now? Do you want to prepare? Give me a few bars.
How about can anyone name the capital of Quebec? Quebec City is a mighty good town. They never turn the maple leaf upside down.
That's great. Dave, thank you so much for celebrating Canada Day with us.
Have a good day.
I do appreciate
Across
it.
the country.
That's Dave from a humble part of Montreal, Verdun. 514-790-0800. I will try and squeeze you in. That's our main Montreal line. In Toronto, you can use the Toronto line, 416-872-1010 for our News Talk 1010 listeners. We've got the toll-free 1-800-491-2523. Now, I'll read you a couple of things here off the text line. I'm getting some texts. Elias, I'm not proud of living in Canada. It is no longer safe. I was attacked in front of my building. There's water leaking into my light fixtures. I called maintenance and fire department. No one thinks it's dangerous. We're not allowed to defend ourselves with a self-defense tool. I no longer feel safe. Now, it's hard. Listen, I got to tell you something. It's hard to argue with a personal story like that, right? Like, what am I going to say? Oh, no, you're crazy. Canada is safe. And I can point to the statistics, and we are safe. If I point to the statistics, it's like if you had to live anywhere in the history of all time on this planet anywhere, and you had to choose the safest place, you'd probably choose Quebec, Canada. In 2026, it's probably what you'd pick. So I don't want to argue against personal experience. So I feel the frustration there. I can still say overall, we do have to feel proud of a country that is, statistically speaking, I know it fights against anecdotes here, that is very, very successful and safe. Now, another listener writes, I was speaking to an immigrant last night. He's lived all over the world, including the USA. And I asked him, where's the best place to live? And he said, even with the politics, here is the best. So I'm very optimistic. It's nice to have the perspective of someone not born here, that we don't appreciate or realize how great Canada is. And to hear Nathan, right, who's a permanent resident, echoing that, like he's not from here and he realizes how great this country is. All right, a couple of things I want to get to here before we get to the rest of the show. And one is, I mentioned this off the top of the show an hour ago. My wife is pregnant, and I was a little blasé about it off the top because if she calls me and says we're going to the hospital, I got to leave the show. We got emergency programming prepared. I said my wife's preggers and the baby could come at any time. She sent me a text message with a better script, okay? So this is what I should have said an hour ago. My lovely wife is expecting and has been in the first stage of labor for 2 weeks. Therefore, it could happen at any moment. And in that case, we'd go to some emergency programming. But for now, no phone call, and we're going to keep on trucking. When we return, we're going to speak to Eric Lombardi. He's running for the leadership of the Ontario Liberal Party, and he says he wants to bring back liberalism to Liberal parties. That's next.
Listen, and you're there for heart-wrenching knockouts,
World's biggest stage,
and breathtaking triumph. 2026 FIFA World Cup, the knockout stage. Every match, every moment. Listen on TSN Radio. Join the Globe on the road to the July 19th final. 2026 FIFA World Cup. Stream it all live on TSN Radio. Available on iHeartRadio.
This is the voice of Montreal.
CJAD 800. Listen, and you're there for heart-wrenching knockouts,
world's biggest stage,
and breathtaking triumph. 2026 FIFA World Cup, the knockout stage. Every match, every moment. Listen on TSN Radio. Join the Globe on the road to the July 19th final. 2026 FIFA World Cup. Stream it all live on TSN Radio. Available on iHeartRadio. Makos continues on the iHeartRadio Talk Network.
Thanks for listening to this Canada Day edition of the Elias Makos Show across the iHeartRadio network, coming to you from Montreal. Now let's get to this subject. What does it actually mean to be a liberal in 2026? Now, it's a question that's actually at the heart of the current Ontario Liberal Party leadership race, where candidate Eric Lombardi is arguing that the party and liberal parties across Canada need to reconnect with core principles of liberalism, economic growth, individual opportunity, strong institutions, and pragmatic government. This is really near and dear to my heart. It's because it's been many years. If you listen to me every day here in Montreal on CJAD, you've heard me over the last few years say that, the Liberal Party of Canada is not a liberal party. I've said it here in Quebec. The Liberal Party of Quebec is no longer a liberal party. And I tell you, when I say that, people look at me like I'm from Mars. What do you mean? It says liberal in the name. How could they not be a liberal party? And I say, you don't get it. Let's go to our next guest. Eric Lombardi, candidate for the Ontario Liberal Party leadership, is on the line. Mr. Lombardi, Eric, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me. Good morning, and of course, happy Canada Day.
Happy Canada Day to you too here. So, Eric, you are speaking to me. As I just mentioned, it's been a while now where I don't feel our liberal parties are actually liberal. Why don't you tell me from your perspective, your thoughts on that?
Well, I think people look at liberalism for the traits that it says to espouse. Tolerance, kindness, open-mindedness, resiliency, and all of these things are important traits of liberalism. But ultimately, liberal politics is about how we, people who are diverse, who come from different backgrounds or faiths, etc., ultimately agree to be governed under a rule of law that we see as fair, that respects our values, and ultimately leads us to the contract of building towards a future together. And I do think that liberal parties, especially in this country, while we've made incredible advancements, especially on social policy, etc., we've lost some of the core ethos of liberalism from which we derive our namesake. And, by that I mean the belief in the individual and seeing people as individuals rather than, stakeholder groups or the various identities that make up parts of who we are. The belief in merit, the belief in long-term consistent institutions that enable us to be free from corruption and capable of building a material well-being that I think matters. And the core promise of liberalism is that ability to work together in democracy to deliver rising living standards for people as its core promise. And I think sometimes we've forgotten that has to be the focus of our mandate.
When and how did this happen, Eric? When did Canada's liberal parties, federally, provincially, go off the rails on liberalism?
I don't think they've gone off the rails entirely. And there are lots of threads of this, especially right now when we're talking about building a bigger country, especially with Mark Carney. But I think we always go through these cycles and we always find our way back. Because at the end of the day, when we have divisions, we can look to the basic principles in which I think this country is founded, and that means small L liberalism, to reorient where we need to go. And I really do think that realignment is happening. I do think that, we came off, especially in the 1990s and 2000s, an era of broader prosperity that allowed us to start thinking and focusing on issues that were not always just the pocketbook items of our economy. And that enabled us as liberals to kind of indulge a lot of luxury beliefs and focuses. And I think now that we see that our country has in some ways declined in development, our ability to deliver infrastructure, the ability to give excellence in public services, now we need to look back to the liberal principles, especially around the economy, and reorient ourselves back to the focus on rising material well-being.
Sometimes when I talk to liberals and I ask them about liberalism and I say, well, what should a liberal represent? And I hear them, they answer that question to me. What they're actually describing is a progressive. And I wonder if you think too many people in liberal parties believe progressive and liberal are synonyms.
I think that is a challenge. And I also think that, for me in particular, I identify as a liberal. And sometimes that means I have progressive values, but more often than not, I think what we focus on is what are the problems, what are the pragmatic solutions, and how do we address them in a way that helps the public understand what it means to move a certain direction. And whether that direction is progressive or even sometimes more traditional, what we have to always remember is that we are able to make these decisions in a free democracy. And I personally think focus on systems rather than sometimes emotions of politics. And that to me is what should guide liberalism going forward.
We're with Eric Lombardi. He's a candidate for the Ontario Liberal Party leadership, and we're talking about liberalism and how many liberal parties, provincially, federally in this country, have veered off the path of liberalism. So, Eric, listen, there's a lot of criticism of you running for the leadership of the Liberal Party and some of the ideas that you're throwing out there to the Ontario Liberal Party. What do you make of the criticism? Where do you think it's coming from?
Well, broadly speaking, I think the criticism is a good sign that I'm doing something right. It's very hard to affect change. And when you are being interpreted as a real threat to some of the status quo thinking that exists, particularly within my party, you are going to attract criticism. And that is far preferable than not attracting any attention at all, frankly. And so, to me, the criticism is just part of free debate in our democracy. I'm being told in some ways that, I'm being attractive to conservatives, and a lot of conservatives like me. Well, I believe that to win the next government and defeat Doug Ford, which I think has become very tired in how Ontario is being governed, then I'm going to have to look to conservatives and say, do you know what? You voted for this person last time, but here's a better picture for the province that I can offer you that's based on clear, pragmatic views of the economy, the role of markets, the role of fair taxation, and the role of aspiration and entrepreneurialism, and all these things that I think are really important to the future of the province. And so if that means people from the Conservative Party like me, well, welcome to the team. If that also means many New Democrats who like my ability to explain complex topics or even take unconventional positions sometimes, well, welcome to the team. I want to build a grand coalition of people who are ready for something different in this province, and that work is just getting started.
In the minute or so that we have left, I want to talk about that because you have garnered some support by some people that may have supported the Conservatives before, and you're getting hit over that. And like some people are calling you're just some sort of tech bro that wants to, advocate for like tech bro positions. I hear all types of stuff that's thrown at you. So how do you respond to that? And people who view that there are conservatives that support your ideas, especially when it comes to liberalism, and view that as a bad thing?
Well, I kind of find this tech bro accusation funny because it's so meaningless, right? My background was in nanotechnology engineering, like semiconductors. I really don't think that is a super scary background. Yes, I've been working in technology, but for several of the last few years, I've been helping the credit union system really invest in becoming a more competitive platform for financial services competition. Like, whoa, scary, right? So I think once people get to know me, they'll see how shallow a lot of these accusations are. And what I'm going to be focused on is delivering the most robust agenda this province has seen in decades. And so stay tuned, because we're going to own the future together.
I got like 10 seconds for you on this one, but are there people inside the Ontario Liberal Party like playing dirty to make sure your messaging doesn't get through?
I don't think there's such thing as playing dirty or really playing fair. People are playing to compete, and I have to be aware of that. And so I am eyes wide open about the competition and the challenges to my message, and my focus is overcoming that.
Eric, my suggestion for you, tongue-in-cheek, is a hat that says, "Make liberal parties liberal again." Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you so much. And once again, happy Canada Day. This country is delightful, and it's got a bright future ahead.
Same to you. That's Eric Lombardi right there. When we return, the future of the drive-through.
This newscast is brought to you by Mera. This week, our chicken breasts from Volaille des Cantons are only $4.79 per pound. Mera, the best-kept secret in town.
Listen, and you're there for heart-wrenching knockouts,
World's biggest stage,
and breathtaking triumph. 2026 FIFA World Cup, the knockout stage. Every match, every moment. Listen on TSN Radio. Join the globe on the road to the July 19th final. 2026 FIFA World Cup. Stream it all live on TSN Radio. Available on iHeartRadio. This is CJAD 800.
Listen anywhere, anytime.
At CJAD800.com.
The iHeartRadio app or on your smart speaker.
Listen, and you're there for heart-wrenching knockouts,
world's biggest stage,
and breathtaking triumph. 2026 FIFA World Cup, the knockout stage. Every match, every moment. Listen on TSN Radio. Join the globe on the road to the July 19th final. 2026 FIFA World Cup. Stream it all live on TSN Radio. Available on iHeartRadio. You can text your thoughts and ideas anytime to 71010. Now back to Elias Makos on the iHeartRadio Talk Network.
And thanks for listening to the Elias Makos Show across the iHeartRadio Network, a special Canada Day edition of the Elias Makos Show. We come to you from the beautiful city of Montreal, and we do that every day in this city, but it's great to be broadcasting coast to coast across the country this morning. Now, every day at 10:30 on the Elias Makos Show, we do a segment called In Transit, where we talk about getting from point A to point B, things that involve cars, trains, planes, pedestrians, you name it. For today, we're going to talk about something you do in your cars on In Transit. That is go through the drive-thru. Now, the next time you pull up to a drive-thru, there's a good chance that the person taking your order won't be a person at all. Now, in the U.S., McDonald's and Wendy's, they're testing a drive-thru technology powered by Google's artificial intelligence. Kentucky Fried Chicken, Taco Bell, they're collaborating with NVIDIA to create their own chatbots. A company called Presto teamed up with Dairy Queen on their drive-thrus south of the border. Now, the technology promises faster service, lower operating costs. It has not been properly implemented in Canada yet, but Canadian companies, Canadian fast food chains are looking at this very thing and what it means for the future of fast food and working in fast food. Let's head over to someone who really knows this space and the entire food industry in this country. Sylvain Charlebois, you know him and love him as the food professor. He's senior director at the Agri-Food Analytics Lab over at Dalhousie University, and he's on the line. Sylvain, happy Canada Day.
Happy Canada Day to you as well.
So let's talk about the battle for the drive-thru. I imagine there's a reason why these big chains are looking towards AI. What is all of this about?
Well, cost, of course. I mean, it's hard to find people to do the work, and if you've driven by a restaurant with a drive-through, you would have noticed that there's often a lineup. I mean, people are on the go, and drive-throughs are incredibly popular. Some cities have actually decided to restrict the number of drive-throughs, but they're still incredibly popular, and people expect to be served very, very quickly. And so companies have actually tried to figure out new technologies to do just that. And humans tend to take more time, not be as precise. They will make mistakes. And so why not use AI? And frankly, when you're driving up to a stall at a restaurant, of course, you're talking to a speaker. And so it doesn't matter if the human is there or not, you probably don't even notice. And frankly, these days with AI, you can actually humanize any AI experience.
But hold on a second, Sylvain, because there have been chains that have implemented the technology, and at least in test trials, pilot projects, and then had to walk it back because the technology simply wasn't good enough. Are we talking about a next generation here that is good enough? Or are we going to be talking about, much like self-checkout, there was the rise of checkout. We might be going through the fall of self-checkout here. Do you think that we'll be talking about in 6 months about another failed pilot project in replacing a human with an AI chatbot?
Oh, goodness. I mean, AI not working, that is so 2025.
Yeah.
I mean, things have changed a lot. I mean, anybody using chatbots would have noticed that these things are becoming way more precise, way more effective. It's the same for restaurants. They're noticing that technologies are changing, and in 6 months from now, it's going to be different also. And so that's why right now they're making a move. And frankly, we have a society that is increasingly becoming more comfortable with AI. Of course, with fast food, there was this notion of surge pricing and using AI to set prices. That didn't go well at all. And I talked to Wendy's about that. They had to walk back and cancel all pilots. But when it comes to service and increasing the quality of the service, I think that's a safe place to go for most restaurant chains.
Now, when it comes to staffing levels, it's been tough for a lot of fast food chains to find employees, right? And I take note of one of the latest versions of McDonald's, right? They always come out with their next generation's restaurant, right? And one had taken away all the cashiers, right? It's all kiosks now. You walk in, it's all kiosks. One thing I had read about this location was they didn't. They're not hiring less people. They still have the same number of bodies, but now they're all in the kitchen. They're not wasting their time taking orders here. So I wonder on that side of things how this will play out.
Yeah, absolutely. So things are shifting in HR for fast food. I mean, two of my kids actually work in fast food, and one of them actually is working supporting the drive-through service, and it's happening. It's like a beehive in there. Lots going on at the same time, and it's nonstop. Of course, sometimes it gets quiet, but you got to perform. When someone shows up, it's fast food, so the service has to be fast. The one thing that I'm noticing, though, and employees are noticing, and my daughter actually has mentioned, is that people are getting a little more grumpier. If you have to wait an extra minute or two, you can tell that people aren't necessarily pleased. So the level of tolerance is becoming low and low and low, and food and restaurant operators actually know that.
And I got to say, Sylvain, I hate the drive-through. When I see a lineup, when I see a lineup of cars waiting to go through the drive-through, I just go right into the parking lot. I park my car. I'll either go in, and now, all these chains, they've got apps where you can just say, hey, I'm in this parking spot. They'll bring the food out to you now. And I said, why would I want to just sit in a lineup like a schmohawk when there are other options out there? I find drive-thrus infuriating. But the proof's in the pudding. They're incredibly busy. There's a lineup happening there for a reason. So, I wonder when it comes to quick service restaurants, fast food restaurants here, just how important the drive-through still is for that profitability.
So when you walk into a restaurant, I actually, by the way, I do the same thing. I hate drive-thrus. I just can't stand them.
They suck.
Yeah. And frankly, I don't want to wait. So I go in, get my order, get out. It's great. But the dining hall is actually often empty. And if it's not empty, I actually bring down the average age, and I'm 56. So it's lots of old folks there. So I think they're going to have to work on the experience, and that's why you may have heard that some chains now are putting in a self-serving soft drinks machine, so people can actually go up and it's all you can drink. And so I think they're trying to find ways to bring back people in their dining rooms, because people in the dining room tend to spend more than the guys or the people going through the drive-thru, because at the drive-thru you're very rational. You know what you want, you order, and then you get out.
Yeah.
When you stick around, you may actually pay more and buy more stuff. That's what they're trying to do.
I'll tell you what, if I sit down, there's a higher chance I'm going to get the apple pie or the sundae or something else on top of the order than when you're in a rush and you got pressure on you to make that order and just get in and get out. With Sylvain, go ahead.
Absolutely. 75% of business right now for a lot of restaurants goes through the drive-through, and they're trying to shift that a little bit more. So expect more tactics to get you in the restaurant and keep you there for as long as possible so you can spend more.
So then I got 45 seconds here. Who's winning the fast food war in this country, in Canada?
I would never bet against McDonald's. Never. Ever. Every time something happens to McDonald's, they come back. But I gotta tell you, I'm paying close attention to Dunkin' Donuts. Dunkin' Donuts will be disruptive in the coffee world. And Tim Hortons have noticed, and Tim Hortons is also changing. So I'm keeping an eye on all of these companies.
Pining to see how it plays out when Dunkin' Donuts launches those first stores in Montreal and Toronto. And that's the other thing. We could talk about fast food wars. We could talk about just the coffee part of that, the coffee wars. Sylvain, I have to leave it there. You're great. Thanks for coming on. Happy Canada Day.
You take care. Bye-bye.
That's Sylvain Charlebois. You know him and love him as the food professor from Dalhousie University. When we come back on the Elias Makos Show, for Canada Day, we're going to do a little bit of Canadian history. We're going to talk about the history of 24 Sussex Drive. The Prime Minister's residence, hey, you know what? They're going to renovate that thing. They're doing a whole competition. What's the history of the residence? We'll talk about it next.
Listen, and you're there for heart-wrenching knockouts,
World's biggest stage,
and breathtaking triumph. 2026 FIFA World Cup, the knockout stage. Every match, every moment. Listen on TSN Radio. Join the globe on the road to the July 19th final. 2026 FIFA World Cup. Stream it all live on TSN Radio. Available on iHeartRadio. This is CJAD 800.
Listen anywhere, anytime.
At CJAD800.com.
The iHeartRadio app or on your smart speaker.
Listen, and you're there for heart-wrenching knockouts,
world's biggest stage,
and breathtaking triumph. 2026 FIFA World Cup, the knockout stage. Every match, every moment. Listen on TSN Radio. Join the globe on the road to the July 19th final. 2026 FIFA World Cup. Stream it all live on TSN Radio. Available on iHeartRadio. This is the iHeartRadio Talk Network. Here's Elias Makos.
And a happy Canada Day for everyone listening to this coast-to-coast edition of the Elias Makos Show. Normally broadcasting to our great listeners in Montreal, but today, Montreal and beyond from Victoria, BC, Ottawa, and Toronto, and the like. Thanks so much for listening. Because it's Canada Day, let's talk a little bit about Canada's history and institutions. Now, the campaign to restore 24 Sussex Drive is off to a strong start. The Rideau Hall Foundation says it's received more than $100,000 in donations since Prime Minister Mark Carney announced plans to renovate the official residence. Well, it should be the official residence for prime ministers. Hasn't been for over a decade. Now get a load of this. More than 200 Canadians donated online over the weekend, with gifts averaging about $250. New pledges have added another $50,000. The renovation doesn't have a final price tag, but the fundraising campaign is capped at $5 million, or 10% of the project's estimated $50 million cost. So let's talk about 24 Sussex Drive, its history, how it ended up in so much disrepair, and how it should be viewed by Canadians. Let's head over to Craig Baird. He's a historian and host of the Canadian History X podcast, EHX, by the way, for that one. Craig, welcome back to the program.
Oh, thanks for having me.
What should every Canadian know about 24 Sussex Drive?
Well, I think that, its history predates even being part of where the Prime Minister would live by quite a while. It was built from 1865 to about 1868 as just a private residence. It wasn't until 1951 that the Prime Minister first moved in. It was Prime Minister Louis Saint Laurent. But one thing that a lot of people don't know is that for about 2 decades, the Prime Minister paid rent to actually live there. And that was at the assistance of Louis Saint Laurent. They paid about $3,000 a year to be able to live there, which was a decent part of their salary.
And how did it come about that, hey, this should be the official residence? How'd that even become a thing?
Well, by 1943, it was the last remaining private residence that was on Sussex Drive. As there was parkland and embassies started to take over. And I think it was the French government that was actually looking at the house as being the French embassy. So the decision was made to purchase it and then do this big renovation and turn it into an official residence for the Prime Minister, because at the time there was no official residence for the Prime Minister. And I think Canadians and the government were looking at 10 Downing Street and the White House as official residences and felt that the Prime Minister should also have one as well, where they could meet dignitaries and host business and such.
And count me among those people that feel like, hey, you look at other, G7 big real deal countries, and they've got these official residences. And I'm like, Canada, we're right up there. We should have those things. Yet, lo and behold, here we are in 2026, and a prime minister hasn't lived at that place in over a decade, and it's got, and apparently the situation in that in that home, in that house, is just terrible. Craig, how do we end up? How did we end up there? How did we end up with a 24 Sussex Drive that is not something to be proud of?
Well, through the years, you would have various prime ministers go in, and they would make changes to it. I think probably the biggest change was the addition of a pool by Pierre Trudeau in the 1970s. But what happened was in the 1980s, Brian Mulroney implemented the policy that all renovations and such on the building would become public knowledge. So the public would know how much was being spent. And that really shifted things, because now it was a political football. It was something that the opposition could latch onto if you were spending $1 million to renovate the house. And so it became something that prime ministers didn't want to do, because it would be looked bad upon by some Canadians or by the opposition, and it gave an easy target for the opposition, and eventually gets to the point where no renovations are being done and it falls into complete disrepair, and then we don't have a prime minister living there for the past 11 years.
Man, I think that's just such a shame, because I don't even think it's politically that bad if a prime minister says we're going to spend money on a renovation, because chances are they won't even be living there by the time it rolls around. Renovations take a lot of time. Through the years, Craig, we're with historian Craig Baird talking about 24 Sussex Drive. Are there some moments, some events that happened at 24 Sussex that you feel really dot the history of the building?
Well, I think hosting the important leaders, Winston Churchill visited. You had John F. Kennedy visit John Diefenbaker at 24 Sussex Drive, and it was it's just been a part of our history for many years. I mean, I remember Rick Mercer going into 24 Sussex Drive to, I think it was twice, with Paul Martin and with Stephen Harper. So it very much became part of the public consciousness, and was even classified as a federal heritage building in 1986, so that it could be preserved, but unfortunately it has not. And I think most people now know 24 Sussex Drive as the place that's infested with rats, rather than that, it's where the prime minister should be living, rather than in a cottage that's nearby.
Oh, and what do we know? So Stephen Harper was the last prime minister to live there, correct?
He was, yeah.
And what do we know about those last years at 24 Sussex? And, I know we've all heard the rat stuff, but just how bad was it in there?
Well, from what I've heard, even back to the Crescenti years, it was cold and drafty, and it was already starting to fall into that disrepair. It was very outdated. It hadn't had any major renovations for several years by that point. And yeah, the air would be coming in through the windows. It was a beautiful building, but it had its issues. And you had I think one was the fireplace brought in a ton of cold air in the winter, even with the fire going. Mm-hmm. So it was definitely something that had to get fixed, but nobody wanted to do it because of how it would look to some Canadians and then the opposition as well.
As a historian, I wonder how you view the plans to renovate the place. There's going to be a design competition as well. All these things announced by Prime Minister Mark Carney last week. How do you view that, right? Because you want to sort of honor the history. I talk to heritage people, like the people here in Montreal, Heritage Montreal, and they talk about historic buildings, and you want to make sure you retain the heritage and that kind of stuff. So how do you view that and the decisions that will come ahead on renovating the place?
Well, I think it's important to keep the look of it as it is and not change it too much. But at the same time, it's completely gutted inside and infested with rats. So it definitely needs to be upgraded and renovated and fixed. And so I think this is good. I think having the design competition, the fundraising, all of that, because the Prime Minister needs a proper house to live in. And we're a nation, and we're a G7 nation, and the 24 Sussex should be just as famous as 10 Downing or the White House as a residence for a world leader. And we probably won't see a Prime Minister in there for several years as the renovations and work are done. But whatever they do, as long as they keep the character of the building, keep the building standing too, because there was talk of demolishing the building.
Yeah.
So if they can just keep the building standing, keep the character of the building, then I think it's a great idea.
Is it an address to be proud of for Canadians historically?
I think so. It doesn't have the same cachet as 10 Downing Street or the White House. And the Prime Minister hasn't even lived there for a century. It was 1951. But I think by doing this and making it a place we can be proud of, we can start to build that recognition for it and make it a place that Canadians can be proud of.
Craig, got to leave it there. It's always great catching up with you. Thanks so much for joining us today. Happy Canada Day.
Happy Canada Day.
That's Craig Baird, historian. He's host of the Canadian History X podcast. EHX is how you spell that one. Now, when we return on the Elias Makos Show, we're going to be taking your pet questions. We're going to be joined by a veterinarian. We know that pet care has become rather costly nowadays. So if you've got an issue with your cat, with your dog, and you want to speak to a veterinarian about it, we'll be taking your calls. 514-790-0800 is our Montreal number if you want to give us a call on that. If you're in Toronto, you can give us a call on the Toronto line as well, which is 416-872-1010. I will hit you with the toll-free number and other options for you when we come back.
Listen, and you're there for heart-wrenching knockouts.
The world's biggest stage.
And breathtaking triumph. 2026 FIFA World Cup. The knockout stage. Every match, every moment. Listen on TSN Radio. Join the globe on the road to the July 19th final. 2026 FIFA World Cup. Stream it all live on TSN Radio. Available on iHeartRadio.
You're listening to the Voice of Montreal.
News Talk Radio. CJAD 800.
An iHeartRadio station.
Listen, and you're there for heart-wrenching knockouts.
The world's biggest stage.
And breathtaking triumph. 2026 FIFA World Cup. The knockout stage. Every match, every moment. Listen on TSN Radio. Join the globe on the road to the July 19th final. 2026 FIFA World Cup. Stream it all live on TSN Radio. Available on iHeartRadio.